As of right now, this laptop right here is the #1 best-selling gaming laptop on all of Amazon, and I think it achieved this status for 3 main reasons. One is the RTX 2050 GPU. It's pretty capable and can play most games just fine at high 1080p settings. 2 is the fast 144Hz display, allowing you to see all those frames. And 3 is the price. This thing is less than $600. I paid about $550 for it. If you want to know all these small details about this machine, check out my dedicated review video, but there's no doubt that this laptop is a fantastic gaming value, and that's why it is the best seller in all of Amazon right now. But some people might have a little bit more or less money to spend, so today we're going to go over 2 more exceptional laptops that flank this one in price. So this will show if spending or saving a little bit extra money is worth it, or if you should just stick with the HP Victus considering it's the best seller for a reason. Since we're using the HP Victus as the benchmark, let's quickly go over what this machine is all about. So the combo of the RTX 2050 GPU and the 144Hz display is the main selling point here. It really is a fantastic combination, and they paired this with the Ryzen 5 7535HS 6-core CPU. And it's a pretty solid companion to this graphics card and will not bottleneck the system in any way. In Cinebench, this pulled a single core score of 1312 and a multi of just over 9,000. 3DMark is a graphical gaming test, and the laptop managed a top-line number of 4,258. And by the way, these numbers will be more useful in a second once we compare them to these other laptops. Now, in my actual testing, this equated to most games being able to reach at least 60 frames per second in high 1080p settings. So heavy games like The Witcher 3, Fallout 4, did reach 60 FPS, but I think this laptop really shines for FPS games. These are usually a lot less demanding, but benefit from higher frame rates and fast displays. So in Overwatch, the RTX 2050 can max out this 144Hz display at 1080p high settings, which is just perfect. That's exactly what you want. The game still looks good, although not fantastic, but more importantly, it's super smooth and enjoyable to play. Battlefield 1 is one of the greatest FPS games of all time. It's a little bit older, but it's still just fantastic, especially in terms of the visuals and the atmosphere. And here the RTX 2050 keeps up with all the particles, lighting effects, textures, eking out 90 frames at high 1080p settings. Something more modern like MW3 achieves 80 frames per second at the same configuration. So that's what roughly a $550 best-selling gaming laptop gets you in 2024. The price does fluctuate, especially on Amazon, so check the link in the description for the latest pricing and availability. But okay, if you want to go cheaper, less than $500, Acer has many solid offerings in this range, and I think this model is their best option. It is substantially cheaper at $431 right now, but you do give up a dedicated graphics card. I found it really hard to find a dedicated GPU in a laptop at this price level. I found that even older cards like the GTX 1650, they tend to hit like a price floor, and they're not that much cheaper than the HP Victus, which makes them completely irrelevant. So that's why I'm going with this laptop. It doesn't have a dedicated GPU, but it's substantially cheaper in price, making the trade-off potentially more reasonable. We do maintain a 1080p IPS display. It's 14 inches in size. The SSD is identical at 512 gigabytes, M.2, and the CPU is fairly comparable to the Victus as well, featuring a Ryzen 5 7520U processor. On Cinebench, the single core score here was 1200, so only 100 behind that of the Victus, but the main trade-off is that we have 2 fewer cores. So that's why the multi-core score is only 5200 versus the 9000 of the Victus. Now graphically, there's a big difference with this laptop. So in 3DMark, this manages just around 600. That is just 15% the gaming performance found in the HP Victus. So this is definitely not a gaming monster, and keep in mind we also lose the 144Hz refresh rate. This is a more standard 60Hz. So is the laptop worth the roughly $200 savings compared to the HP Victus? Well, it depends on the application. I would say if you want a game, like at all, the extra $200 for the Victus will be the greatest money you ever spent. But okay, what if you want to spend a little bit more? This is where things get a bit murky, because the next logical step up in gaming performance are laptops with the RTX 3050. And you can find laptops with the RTX 3050 for only about $100 more than the Victus. But you should be aware that the 3050 isn't really that much better than the 2050 when they have the same amount of VRAM. So for example, this Acer Nitro 5 is one of the better RTX 3050 laptops I found right now. It only costs $689, and it gives you, of course, the RTX 3050, as well as a more competent CPU. This scores about 400 points higher in Cinebench, but the 3050 only has 4GB of VRAM, same as the 2050 found in the HP Victus, and the system RAM here is only 8GB compared to the 16 found in the HP Victus. I should also mention that there is a version of the HP Victus that packs the RTX 3050, and it's almost identical to this Acer Nitro, with a similar CPU, a 4GB RTX 3050, and again, unfortunately, only 8GB of system RAM, all for $685. So if you want my take on the whole situation, I can say pretty definitively that going cheaper is not going to be worth it. You're just going to be better off going with a tablet or one of these mobile handheld game PCs if your budget is on the low end. But if you want to spend a little bit more, laptops with the RTX 3050 only cost an additional $100. That's not a huge difference in price, but the performance is also not that different between a 3050 and a 2050 when the VRAM is the same. But considering that I'm currently maxing out the 144Hz display in Overwatch with my RTX 2050, the $100 premium for the 3050 just isn't worth it to me. However, if you do play heavier games, having a few extra frames per second could be exactly what you need. So I'll leave the Amazon link to all of these top laptops below the video. If you buy with my link, it helps to support what I do here, but you can also just leave a like if you enjoyed, and I hope to see you guys in the next one.